So Sean McConnell here in our Asheville office just asked, what is the purpose of hot gas reheat in a VAV system? Which is a great question. First, I'm going to show you that, but first let's talk about how a VAV system operates. So this is just a rough drawing of an air handling unit supplying VAV boxes out to a space. So you got your outdoor air and return air going through your DX cooling coil, then would go through a hot gas reheat coil, your supply fan, which is controlled with some kind of duct static pressure sensor here. Your VAV boxes are independently controlled by the space thermostat. So the way a VAV system works is each VAV box, each zone has a temperature sensor, and that is controlling the valve position and the airflow into the space. So if it gets too hot in the space, it opens up the valve, brings in more air, etc. If it gets too cold, it closes down the valve. The static pressure sensor here is reacting to the position of these dampers. So the more static here, the slower the fan. So it's basic operation of a VAV split system, chill water air handler, whatever you have. So why would you need hot gas reheats? We sell a lot of AON products, and sometimes we have hot gas reheat coils in VAV systems, because you know, in a VAV system, you're typically controlling 55-degree air, leaving air temperature all the time into the space. So when you're going through the cooling coil and the hot gas reheat coil's not energized, you're getting 55-degree air into the supply duct. Generally, that's going to dehumidify the air enough to dehumidify the space, right? What can happen at extreme part loads is as these boxes shut down, you know, they're reacting to sensible only, you're decreasing the airflow into the zones, right? So there could be a scenario where you're getting high humidity in one of these zones because you don't have enough airflow at 55 degrees to absorb the humidity in the space. So what you can do is have a humidity sensor in one of these spaces. We'll just use this as an example. And as the humidity in space A gets higher than your humidity set point, then you would initiate a dehumidification sequence, which basically would drive this coil temperature down, let's say to 48 degrees, just for example, and you'd reheat it back up to 55 degrees. Oops, 55 degrees. So what you're doing is you're providing 7 more degrees of basically cooling, and you're driving more moisture out of there. So that's scenario 1 when you would use hot gas reheat. I would say that's doesn't happen very often. It's not very likely you're going to have that happen. So the other scenario is in most VAV systems, in the unoccupied mode, this is basically a constant volume system. So the boxes would all be open 100%, and this cooling and heating would be reacting to a temperature sensor somewhere in the space, some general area, let's say a lobby or near the return, and it would be initiating the cooling off of that. So since it's basically a constant volume system at part load, you could get scenarios where the humidity in the space would get higher than you want. So you might have a humidity sensor in return duct, or in some general area representative of the building you're in, and this would initiate a dehum cycle in a constant volume air handler, which would look something like this. Cold coil again, let's say 48 degrees, and then you would reheat it back up to whatever we decide to tell it to reheat up to meet the temperature set point in the space. So if it's 72 as a set point, this may be 55 degrees, it may be higher than that depending on how cool or warm it is in the space. So that's an example of hot gas reheat when you would use it in VAV systems.